Good morning, everyone. This is Tuesday, the 28th of January 2025, and we need to talk about what the Met Office has just extended across significant portions of the United Kingdom, because your commute today, and frankly the next several days, is going to be substantially more challenging than what we've already been dealing with. The Met Office has now extended multiple weather warnings, including yellow warnings for wind and rain, that are impacting travel, causing disruptions, and creating conditions that require your immediate attention before you head out that door. Let's get right into what we're dealing with right now. The Met Office issued and has now extended yellow weather warnings for wind across large swathes of England and Wales. And we're talking about wind gusts that are reaching 50 to 60 miles per hour in exposed locations. That's strong enough to bring down tree branches, create hazardous driving conditions, particularly for high-sided vehicles, and cause delays across the transportation network. These warnings went into effect in the early hours of this morning, and they're going to persist through the evening commute, which means if you're heading out now or planning to travel later today, you need to factor in significant additional time, and you need to be prepared for rapidly changing conditions. Alongside these wind warnings, we've got yellow warnings for rain that have been extended across parts of Scotland, northern England and Wales, with the Met Office indicating that rainfall accumulations of 20 to 40 millimetres are expected widely. And in the higher elevations, particularly across the Scottish Highlands and the hills of northern England and Wales, we could see 60 to 80 millimetres or more. That's enough rainfall in already saturated ground conditions to cause localised flooding, especially in areas with poor drainage, or where rivers are already running high from previous rainfall events. Now here's what this means for specific regions, and I want to break this down geographically, because depending on where you are, you're going to face different primary concerns. If you're across southern England, the London area, the southeast, East Anglia, your main threat today is going to be those strong winds. And we're looking at sustained winds of 30 to 40 miles per hour, with those gusts up to 55, maybe 60 miles per hour, especially near the coast. The rain is also going to be a factor, but it's those winds that are going to cause the most significant disruptions to your Tuesday. We're already seeing reports of delays on rail services, and if you're driving, particularly if you're on exposed routes, if you're crossing bridges, if you're in a high-sided vehicle or towing a caravan or trailer, you need to reduce speed, allow extra following distance, and be prepared for sudden gusts that can push your vehicle around. The wind is going to make conditions feel considerably colder than the actual temperature as well. And with actual temperatures sitting around 6 to 9 degrees Celsius across the south, that wind chill is going to make it feel more like 2 to 4 degrees. So you need to dress appropriately if you're going to be spending any time outside. Moving up into the Midlands, or to cross into Wales and into northern England, you're dealing with a double threat situation where both the wind and the rain are going to be significant factors in your day. The wind warnings apply here just as they do farther south, but the rainfall is going to be heavier and more persistent, and the Met Office is particularly concerned about the combination of ongoing rain with already saturated ground creating enhanced flood risk. We've got rivers across these regions that are running high. We've got soil moisture levels that are at or near saturation in many areas. And when you add 30, 40, 50 millimetres of additional rainfall on top of that, you create situations where water has nowhere to go except onto roads, into properties in vulnerable locations, and into areas with inadequate drainage infrastructure. The Environment Agency has flood alerts in effect across multiple river catchments in these regions. And you need to check the specific status for your local area, because what might be a minor inconvenience in one location could be a significant flood risk in another location just a few miles away, depending on local topography and drainage systems. Scotland, you're looking at the most intense rainfall of anywhere in the UK today, particularly across the Western Highlands, the southern uplands and into the central belt. The Met Office warning for rain across Scotland indicates that we could see 40 to 60 millimetres quite widely, but in the elevated terrain, we're talking the mountains of the West Highlands. The higher peaks of the southern uplands, accumulations could reach 80 to 100 millimetres through the course of today and into tonight. That's substantial rainfall in terrain, where it can run off quickly, creating rapid rises in stream and river levels. And the Scottish Environment Protection Agency has multiple flood warnings and alerts in effect. The wind is also going to be a significant factor across Scotland, particularly in the western and northern areas, where exposed locations could see gusts reaching 60 to 70 miles per hour, especially around the coast and in the islands. If you're in the Western Isles, the Northern Isles, Orkney, Shetland, you're going to see the strongest winds of anywhere in the UK today. And these are winds that can cause structural damage, bring down power lines, create very dangerous conditions on the roads, and make any travel, particularly ferry services, extremely hazardous or impossible. Let me give you the timeline on how this is going to evolve, because understanding when conditions are going to be at their worst is crucial for planning your day. Right now, as I'm speaking to you, we're already in the thick of it across many areas. The rain started during the overnight hours across Scotland and northern England. The winds have been increasing since the early morning hours, and we're going to see conditions intensify through the late morning and into the midday period. The worst of the winds across England and Wales is going to be roughly between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. today. That's your Tuesday afternoon commute, right in the peak of the strongest wind gusts. The heaviest rainfall across Scotland and northern England is going to persist through most of the daylight hours, but we're going to see a particular intensification during the afternoon, where rainfall rates could reach 5 to 10 millimetres per hour in the most intense bands moving through. As we head into the evening, we're going to start to see a gradual improvement from the south. The winds will begin to ease slightly across southern England during the late afternoon and evening. The rain will become more showery and intermittent rather than persistent. But Scotland and northern England are going to continue to deal with difficult conditions well into tonight and potentially into the early hours of Wednesday morning. Now the impacts. Let's talk about what this actually means for you on the ground, because that's what matters most. Transportation is going to be significantly affected and is already seeing major disruptions. Rail services are reporting delays and some cancellations across the network. We're seeing particular issues on routes that are exposed to the wind, coastal routes, routes that cross high bridges, or viaducts where wind speed restrictions come into effect. If you're planning to travel by rail today, check with your operator before you leave, expect delays, and factor in substantially more time than you normally would. Road conditions are hazardous. We've got surface water on many routes from the ongoing rainfall. We've got strong crosswinds affecting high-sided vehicles. We've got the potential for fallen trees or debris on roads, particularly in rural areas or areas with a lot of tree cover. Drive to the conditions, reduce your speed. Use your headlights even during daylight hours to improve visibility. And if you encounter standing water on the road, do not attempt to drive through it unless you can clearly see the road surface underneath and you know the depth is safe. Just 6 inches of moving water can knock an adult off their feet. 12 inches can move a small car, and 2 feet can sweep away most vehicles, including SUVs. Air travel is experiencing delays and some cancellations, particularly at airports that are most exposed to the wind. We're seeing issues at airports across Scotland, northern England, and in exposed coastal locations. If you've got a flight scheduled today, check with your airline well before you head to the airport, because the last thing you want is to make a difficult journey in bad weather, only to find out your flight has been cancelled or delayed by several hours. Ferry services are significantly disrupted or cancelled across many routes, particularly in Scotland where the strong winds and rough seas make operations unsafe. CalMac is reporting multiple route cancellations. Northlink is seeing disruptions to Northern Isles services. And if you're relying on ferry travel today, you need to have contingency plans in place, because there's a very real possibility that your sailing will not operate. The Met Office has been very clear in their warning statements that these conditions pose a danger to life in some circumstances. We're talking about the potential for injuries from flying debris, from large waves and beach material being thrown onto coastal areas, from fallen trees, from difficult driving conditions. This is not weather to take lightly. This is not weather where you want to be taking unnecessary risks or making non-essential journeys unless you absolutely have to. If your journey can wait until Wednesday or later in the week when conditions improve, that's the safer choice. If you do have to travel, tell someone where you're going and when you expect to arrive. Keep your phone charged, have warm clothing and supplies in your vehicle in case you get delayed or stranded, and monitor conditions continuously. Because weather like this can change quickly, and what's manageable in one moment can become dangerous very rapidly. Power outages are possible, particularly in areas that see the strongest winds, or where falling trees can bring down power lines. Keep your phone charged, have flashlights available, know where your emergency supplies are, and if you do lose power, report it to your electricity provider and do not approach any fallen power lines. Structural damage is possible to buildings, temporary structures, and outdoor equipment. Secure loose items in your garden or outdoor areas. Check that fences and gates are secure. Bring in or tie down bins, garden furniture, trampolines, anything that could be picked up by strong winds and become a projectile hazard. Let's put this into some broader context because I think it's important to understand where this fits in the pattern we've been seeing. This is part of a very active Atlantic pattern that has been bringing repeated weather systems across the UK. We've had storm after storm tracking across the Atlantic, and what we're seeing today is the latest in this series, but it's certainly not going to be the last. The jet stream is positioned in such a way that it's funneling these systems directly toward the UK, and that pattern is going to continue through at least the end of this week and into the early part of next week. We're looking at unsettled conditions that are going to persist. After today's system moves through, we'll get a brief window of somewhat improved conditions on Wednesday, where we'll see a mix of sunny spells and showers rather than persistent rain and strong winds. But then we've got another system that's going to move in later Thursday and into Friday that could bring another round of wet and windy weather. The ground is saturated across much of the UK at this point. Rivers are running high, and each additional system that comes through has the potential to cause flooding, even if the rainfall amounts in that individual system wouldn't normally be a major concern, simply because there's no capacity left in the ground or in the drainage systems to absorb or channel away additional water. I want to emphasise the safety aspects of this one more time, because your safety is the most important thing here. Do not drive through floodwater. It is the number one cause of weather-related deaths during flood events. And it's completely preventable if people simply turn around and find an alternate route when they encounter water on the road. Just 6 inches of water can cause loss of control and stalling in most vehicles. 12 inches will float many vehicles, and 2 feet of water will carry away virtually any vehicle, including large SUVs and trucks. The water might not look deep, it might not look like it's moving fast, but underneath the surface, you have no idea what the road condition is like. The road surface might be washed away. There might be debris, there might be a pothole or a drainage grate that's been displaced, and once your vehicle starts floating, you have no control over where it goes. Turn around, don't drown. It's a simple message, but it saves lives. If you're in an area under a flood warning or flood alert, follow the guidance from the Environment Agency or the Scottish Environment Protection Agency. Have a plan for what you're going to do if flooding does affect your property. Know where your important documents are. Know where you would go if you needed to evacuate. Have an emergency kit prepared with essentials like medication, important papers, phone chargers, flashlights, and some basic supplies. The wind safety message is equally important. If you're outside during the strongest winds, be aware of your surroundings. Stay away from trees that could drop branches or fall over completely. Stay away from coastal areas where large waves and flying beach material pose a serious hazard. And if you're driving, particularly in a high-sided vehicle, reduce your speed significantly. Grip the steering wheel firmly with both hands. And be prepared for sudden gusts that can push your vehicle sideways or buffet you around. As we track this through the rest of the week, I'm going to continue to bring you updates. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any updates, because conditions like this evolve, and what the forecast shows today might be refined tomorrow as we get new data and new model runs. The Met Office will continue to update their warnings as well, and I'll be passing along any changes to the timing, the intensity, or the geographic extent of impacts as soon as that information becomes available. Stay safe out there today. This is weather that demands respect and demands that you take it seriously, but with proper preparation and smart decision-making about travel and activities. We'll all get through this. Check on vulnerable neighbours, particularly elderly folks who might need assistance. Make sure your family knows the plan if conditions worsen, and just use common sense about what activities are appropriate for today and what activities should wait for better weather. I'll be back with more updates as we continue to track this system and as we monitor what's coming later this week. So again, make sure you're subscribed, and I will see you in the next forecast update. Stay dry, stay safe, and take care of yourselves and each other.